So about 2 months ago, in the Judean desert, in a cave not far away from Ein Gedi, a cache or a stash of Roman militaria was found. Finding weapons in the Judean desert and places like Masada where I excavate is not new, but the scale and the quality, the number of weapons, and in this case mainly swords, and the exquisite condition of preservation, namely that you have the wooden scabbards, that you have leather thongs, and element like that is unicum, is one of a kind.
So in the last 6 years, the Israel Antiquities Authority initiated a survey and excavation project in the Judean desert caves due to activities of looting in the Judean desert caves. We wanted to prevent those activities, and therefore we initiated this project. In part of it, 2 months ago, we surveyed a cave in the Judean desert, a small cave located in the vicinity of Ein Gedi oasis. In a small niche in one of the walls of the cave, we found a pilum head made of iron, and in other crevice of the cave, we found intact 4 Roman swords, perfectly preserved with the handles, wooden handles, with the scabbards, beautifully preserved. Those swords were taken to the laboratories of the Israel Antiquities Authority, and we started a preliminary research of those swords. Due to our knowledge now, and we want to, of course, do further examinations. Due to our knowledge now, the swords were used usually during the 2nd century CE until the beginning of the 3rd century. All the types of swords are from this particular time, including a Pompeii type spada, a ring pommel sword, and other swords. And when we are examining the history of the 2nd century CE in the land of Israel, so we think that the best event that this stash of swords could occur is during the Bar Kokhba revolt, which occurred since 132 until 136 CE. During that revolt, the Jews revolted against the Romans, the Roman rule in Judea. And in the last stages of the revolt, the Jews ran away to the caves in the Judean desert and just took refuge on those caves. And now we see that they also probably took weapons, standard weapons of Romans, the Roman army, maybe collected them as a booty from the battlefield or stolen them from Roman army units and hid them in a stash or a cache of weaponry, Roman weaponry, in a cave, difficult to access cave and very remote, probably to be reused in future battles against the Romans.
We actually were able to shed light on the typology. Some of them, let's say, belong clearly to Roman soldiers, I would say roughly in the 2nd century CE, but at least one sword is very alien to our region, the ring pommel sword, and it comes from area towards the region of the Danube. It's a long way to Tipperary, and it is actually the first appearance of this type in the Roman East. So why it is here, who brought it here, where it was produced, and so forth, is part of what we are after right now. So again, it is a typology, understanding each type, but for us the attempt is always to go beyond the mere understanding of the types and to shed light about the economy, technology, history, culture, people. That's the greatest joy in archaeology.
But to see this kind of assemblage of swords and weaponry, it's incredible. Okay, it's once in a lifetime finding. This kind of finding was never found in the land of Israel. It's beautifully preserved, and also when we are looking about other parts of the Roman Empire, this kind of swords is very unique, okay, to find in this kind of preservation, and it also gives us a story. This is a story because we know exactly where they were stashed, where they were hidden, so we can imagine what happened to those swords. First, to whom they were belonged in the Roman army, which unit or soldiers, from where the unit is coming, and afterwards, which people or who took them and collected them and then stashed them inside the cave. Eventually, the person who hid the swords in the cave never came back to collect them, and we found them almost 2,000 years later.
What we have here is a great potential. For me, in a way, this is just the very beginning. The fact that yes, we have the discovery. People will be excited from the fact that the sword, the blade is still sharp and you can actually harm yourself. But that's just the tip of the icing of the cake, I would say. The most important thing is potential, not only getting the answers, but getting new questions. And the fact that we nowadays have a collection of weapons. We want to know where they came from, who owned it, who produced it, why it ended up in a cave. The fact that some of those swords are certainly not local in the Roman East as a whole, is very suggestive. And what we're trying now is to start shedding light on the mechanisms, on the individual, about the people who own them, who produce them. At the end of the day, material culture is my world, but there were people behind material culture and behind the artifact, and this is what we're trying to reveal right now. It's not a matter of black and white or yes or no questions. We have to speak about factor P in archaeology, which is patience. And I'm saying it not because I don't want to provide you an answer. I'm dying to know. Maybe dying is not the right term to be used here. But you have to understand that nowadays we have in our arsenal of weapons, so to speak, so many technologies like DNA and isotopes and the study of archaeometallurgy and so forth. So we're just at the very beginning. Some of the swords are still in their scabbards and you can't see the blade because it's still in the basically schist in the scabbard. So we will need special radiometric photography and so forth. So we're just ahead of that. Once we'll have carbon-14 datings and one will have the DNA results, and isotope will be able to say more about the history of each sword. It's not one event. The fact that they were found in the cave represent a moment in time, but their history might have been lengthy. For example, being produced in a certain part of the empire, being shipped here, possibly by the unit. Maybe the unit was attacked, killed, the swords were collected. So this is what we are after. It will be irresponsible on my behalf as a scientist to tell you this what have happened. We can't even pinpoint it yet within the 2nd century to the beginning or to the end. Yes, we have suspects about the agent, the possible agent, and the possible circumstances. There are not too many of them, but I can think about at least 3 scenarios, and the most plausible is the one that connects the dots around the Second Jewish Revolt between 132 and 135-36, of which we know historically very little. We know a lot from archaeology, but we don't have an historian in the magnitude of Flavius Josephus to tell us the narration and the occurrences of that revolt. So this is basically the challenge and the attempt, and this is why we're assembling now a team from the IAA and from other universities to shed more light about this riddle, and this is part of the joy.
Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and sign up for our digital newsletter so that you can stay up to date on everything from the world of biblical archaeology. And if you would like to see more, why not check out one of the videos on your screen right now?